my goodness, sometimes it's so difficult. Actually, I should mention to you, if ever that happens to you, one of the great tricks to make it pass very quickly is to have the attitude of a dustbin. It's very, very apt, because that's what I feel sometimes after these talks. I sit here and people queue up to tell me their problems. Basically, they're just dumping their trash into me, because that's what it is like, that's what it feels like. And I don't mind, I'm very happy to receive your rubbish. You come and tell me about your kids are not doing well, that they're taking drugs or they're misbehaving, your husband has got a mistress, your wife is spending all your money, or she's left you and she's taking all your money anyway before she spent it. And you got cancer and there's problems all over the place and you're dying and life is dying and all the problems which people have. So you listen to them with kindness, and it's really nice that people actually tell you these things. Sometimes that's all they need to do, is just to open up and let somebody listen to them. Because when they tell you, it doesn't really sound so bad once they bring it up. So my teacher said to me that one day that you'll be like me, because Ajahn Chah said he's a dustbin, a trash can. Everybody comes and they tell him all their problems. But he said the most important thing about being a dustbin or a trash can is always to have a hole in the bottom. Now that's the most important thing. So when people dump their stuff in, it goes straight through and you keep nothing. If you're a trash can with the bottom in it, you soon get filled up, and that's when you can't take any more. As for me, you dump something in, and by the time you've gone, I've forgotten it, and then somebody else comes and dumps some more in. I received a whole lot of it, but my goodness, I keep nothing. When I go back to my room, I've forgotten everything. Isn't that wonderful to be able to do that? To be a trash can, a dumping ground with no hole. That means you're always empty to receive the next person's problems. I know that some psychologists were saying they get burnout. They went to a psychology meeting a couple of weeks ago. That's the reason why they get burnout. It's because that they keep things. So when you do have life's difficulties, please learn how to let them go, because if you don't let go of the difficulties today, you won't be able to be able to cope with the difficulties which are coming tomorrow. The difficulties keep on coming, but they do pass. That's a wonderful thing about that story of the emperor's ring, because the story became this emperor. You know who the emperor is, don't you? It's you. You're the emperor of your life, of your body, of your little family, of your world. The emperor in this story, a young guy who hadn't got much experience. Every time life was going well, he thought this is the way life should be, and he would have parties and have fun and have feasts and have holidays and have a wonderful time, which is fair enough. When life goes well, enjoy it. But because he took the good times for granted, he never realized that even the good times will pass. It meant he didn't prepare himself for when the difficult days came. And when the difficult days did come, number one, he never expected it. Number two, he didn't know how to cope with it. So he ended up getting depressed and angry at others and angry at himself for making mistakes. He just was incompetent. He couldn't do anything. He stayed in his room and sulked and cried and got angry and upset. That's no way to solve problems. So this emperor, he had all these ministers who were supposed to help him, but if you're a minister looking after a king, you can't tell the king what to do. He won't listen. You know what it's like having a husband? He won't listen, and same with the wife, she won't listen either. So you've got to be smart, you've got to be sneaky. So the ministers, what they did, they got this ring, a simple ring, but on the outside of the ring were written the timeless words, "This too will pass." They engraved that on the outside of the ring. And I've told that story many years ago, and some people here have actually got a ring, and they got their jeweler to actually inscribe those words on the outside. They showed it to me, "This too will pass." Just like the emperor's ring, because this emperor would wear that ring on all occasions. They told him to. And that changed his whole life. When life was going very, very difficult, when there was a lot of problems, sometimes insurmountable problems in his life, he looked at that ring and it told him this too will pass, which it did. This is not just a theory, this is a truth. Many of you have really been in very dark places in your life, and you've come out of them. It doesn't matter how bad it gets, it doesn't last. That is a truth of this nature of life, a simple truth, but it's being reinforced this evening. Just remind yourself. Sometimes when we do go into those dark places, again, we can't see the light at the end of the tunnel, as they say. That is one of the problems why we get really depressed, because we can see no ending to this. Just having a ring like that reminds you, yes, there is an ending. No matter how tough it gets, it will not last. I remember telling that to many prisoners I used to meet in jail. I don't care how long your sentence is, there will come a day and you'll be surprised at how soon it comes when you walk out of this jail. When you walk out of this jail, you'll feel very happy that you're now free. 1 or 2 years after that time, you probably won't even remember being in jail. It'll be a totally different life for you. It does pass. I can't resist telling the story. I don't know where I told this story. Again, I give so many talks all over the world. If I told it recently here, never mind. Remember, repeating stories, it will pass. So if it gets really miserable for you, you'll be between a tiger and a snake. Don't worry about it. There's always some honey somewhere. And that's the story I read in this article about this young kid, 6 years of age, was when he ran away from home in Los Angeles. I think he had one of these very abusive families, beating him, not really looking after him, so he left home and lived on the streets from the age of about 6 years of age. It's incredible he survived. But the only way to get by was petty crime, and he'd get sort of arrested every now and again. And from petty crime to bigger crime, he became a career criminal. And what changed his life, he was in his late 40s or 50s, was when he was shortly to be released from another spell in jail. He had a case officer who was trying to find him a job. How can you get a job, once you've been in prison most of your life? Who would employ you? But she was very resourceful. She found just the right job with his life experience qualifications. Because she knew a friend of a friend who was making a movie about gangsters, and they wanted someone who really knew how true criminals spoke and acted. He was about to be released, so she got him a job as a consultant in this gangster movie. That he was highly qualified for that. But once the director saw him, he was so authentic, he gave him a part in the movie. And he became one of the stars. The movie was called Reservoir Dogs. It was a breakthrough movie of Quentin Tarantino. And this guy, he wrote this article, he was only 6 months out of jail. He made this movie, and he was sitting in a mansion in Malibu somewhere with more money than he'd ever had in his whole life, because this movie was a success. And he married that case officer. He couldn't believe just how life changes so quickly. 6 months ago, he was in prison with no money and prospects. Now he had no more money than he could deal with. And he was free and married and happy. That's what I mean. Life does have unexpected turns to it. It is totally unexpected. That's why when you have this too will pass, and it does. I've had many stories of people here, amazing things happen to them. Things just change. Life just turns around on a dime and goes in directions you'll never ever expect. Difficulties get solved. Problems, they just, after a while you work through them, and the time comes they're gone. That's why that this is important to understand, that every time you're really in the shit, really deep in it, having a terrible time, remember, yeah, it passes.